Yeah.
are recording. So
What is up, everybody? As you can see, we're kind of in a different environment here. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it, certainly. I know Doc
Yeah.
is.
This is nice in here. We got to first say thanks to Eric and
Yeah.
Erica here
Yeah, thank you guys.
for letting us use
truly
your
an
studio.
honor to be in here, man. I don't feel
Yeah.
like I'm worthy enough to be in here.
You are worthy. Jack.
But the sole purpose of kind of being in here is learning more about you, Doc. We want to learn more about you. I know the customer base, they may know certain things about you, but from the outside, they may see you as just a chiropractor when you are a true human and you go through a lot, especially with your family. So I want to ask you a great question,
Yeah.
which is what made you become a chiropractor in the first place? And if you could point out a specific point where you're like, man, I got to do this. You
Yeah,
know?
that's what I'm going to do. It was in undergrad. I went to Upper Iowa University in a little town called Fayette. And when you go to school there, you realize that there's not a whole lot going on in Fayette. And then you kind of almost feel like you're a prisoner. So then we start calling it Fayette-Nam. No, but then, actually Fayette's beautiful. I love it now. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to go anywhere else. It's such a beautiful place. And obviously, because I discovered chiropractic in this town. So I went to Fayette, though, just to play baseball at Upper Iowa. They had a great baseball program, so that was the biggest reason why I went there. And then I couldn't play baseball anymore because I played, like I played there a half hour, and then I had to be done.
So coming out of high school, first off, you're
Yeah.
like, I want to play baseball
Yeah.
in college.
Yeah.
This is one of the only schools that offered me or that would say we'll let you play.
Yep, and every time they would send me something, I'm like, I am not going to school there. I've been to Fayette before. My sister went to a basketball camp there. I was like, I am not going to that town. It's too much like my hometown Sheffield. It's tiny, it's small, there's nothing to do, the blah, blah, blah. And every time I would get some, nope, I'm not going there. Nope, I'm not going there. Every time, nope, not going there. And then all of a sudden, it gets to be July of 1993. And, I got to be going to school in August. And I was like, well, shoot. I think I'm going to go to Upper Iowa because I think I'll have a better chance playing there. So all of a sudden, my script flipped, or my script flipped.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to Fayette, and I go there to play baseball. And in the fall, I couldn't hardly lift my arm anymore because of my, baseball in through summer, my senior year. I had tendonitis so bad I could barely lift my arm,
Yeah.
and so I thought it would get better in the few weeks between ending baseball in high school to college, and it never got any better. And I couldn't throw anymore. Literally couldn't throw. And as a catcher, you got to be able to throw the ball, right? And so then I stopped playing baseball, and somebody said, "Hey, look into chiropractic." And I was thinking, well, all right. Well, because I was thinking about being a physical therapist or getting into sports medicine. That's what I had been helped through a physical
Yeah,
therapist.
you get hurt, and then you're like, oh, how can I help kids that get hurt, right? Because I'm not one of a kind,
Exactly. I'd had an injury my junior year that had been helped with through PT. And so I said, oh, maybe that's what I'll do. And then somebody said, look into chiropractic. And I said, all right, I don't know anything about chiropractic. I just think they're back doctors.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, gosh, I could actually be a doctor with this too. And since they're just back doctors, it should be pretty easy, right? And that's the mentality that I had going into it. And then I knock on the chiropractor's door, Dr. Kirk Abernathy in Fayette, Iowa. And he says, I said, hey, I'm thinking about being a chiropractor. I don't really know anything about it. Can you tell me a little bit? What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? What's the direction I need to go? And he said, well, I, work with the school at Upper Iowa, and we do a pre-chiropractic class, so you can come on in, and I'll teach you what you'll be learning first trimester at Palmer, and I'll teach you about chiropractic, and you'll help me here at the office, and you'll get firsthand experience. And I thought, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
So I start working with Dr. Abernathy, and he starts telling me the principles of chiropractic, that, the body heals from above down, inside out, and it flows through the nervous system, and we're just reconnecting the brain to the body through the nervous system, because the spine is like, little light switches. If the light switches turn off, the power shuts down, and then your body breaks down. And I thought, well, that isn't anything that I thought it was. And then I thought, well, that all checks out because I've had my anatomy classes. I had that in high school, and I was already doing an anatomy and biology class in college right away. And I was like, yeah, that all makes sense. That checks out. Okay, cool. So then he starts adjusting me. And my tendonitis goes away.
In your arm, and he
In
wasn't
my-
adjusting your arm.
No, it wasn't adjusting my arm. And my allergies went away because I had had allergies for years in high school, which before they were allergies, they were sinus problems and headaches as a smaller kid. So the symptoms changed, but there were still problems there. And then that went away. And then I started getting like straight A's. Everything was just like clicking. And I was like, school was it was never hard for me, but it was just easy.
Yeah.
And I said, I think that's what I'm going to do. And from that point on, I was like, this is exactly what I'm going to do. Because the first thing I said was, why didn't somebody tell me? The same thing that we get, that parents
with
say
moms,
all the
for
time
sure,
in our office. It's like, why didn't somebody tell me this before? And I thought this back in 93, well, that's what I'm going to do. I got a big enough mouth. I can tell enough people. So that's what I decided to do. And there's a little part of me too that's kind of black sheep-like. Like I have this thing with, I don't want to call it being a rebel because I'm not a rebel, but there's just certain things about me and my personality where I don't necessarily like to follow what everybody else is doing, kind of a thing,
Yeah.
right? There's a bit of a,
In times past, it would repel people away.
yeah, maybe so.
starting to attract
And so, yeah. And so this chiropractic thing was kind of like chiropractors are like the black sheep of the medical profession. So, and once I discovered how awesome it was and how simple it was, and the fact that they're kind of like the rebels of the healthcare field, I was like, sign me up for sure.
It's unique. It's was there a moment you mentioned like he told you all this stuff and you paired it with your anatomy and instantly it kind of pieced itself together. Do you remember a moment where like a light bulb went off and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like, I got to do this,
Well,
or everything? It kind of just you kind of just fell into chiropractic.
I fell into it.
Yeah.
Literally, it was just like it was divine intervention, if you will.
Yeah.
So there's always why did I end up going to Fayette? Because there was no way that I was going to go there. Like it wasn't happening. I was going to UNI, University of Northern Iowa, to play baseball there, but they didn't have like a real baseball team. It was like a club, and that's where I was like, I don't really want to go there, I guess. And then I'm going to go to this place that I told myself I was never going to go to, and then went to, and then I was actually going to transfer out after the first year, and then I didn't do that either. I stayed there, and then ended up like having the best time of my life and learning about the profession that I was going to do, and it all just worked out. Like there was like some plan that I didn't see was going on.
So, what was it like at Palmer? I know in times past we've talked about Dr. Jeannie Ohm. You said
Yeah.
was one of your biggest mentors growing up.
Yeah.
What was she like? If you could tell us a little bit about her.
Well, I
and
didn't
then your time
actually.
at Palmer as well.
Yeah, I didn't meet Jeannie until after I graduated.
Okay.
Until directly after I graduated, and Palmer was. Ooh, that was quite an experience too, because you just kind of thrown into a buzzsaw, really, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. It's like averages like 28 to 31 hours per trimester, and it's a load, and you're just classes, and tests all over the place, and it was quite an experience. But that's where my oldest son Gabriel was born, is in Davenport, and that's also then started my passion for family health and pediatrics. I kind of always went to chiropractic school with the understanding that I'd be helping kids because of my own experience, and I thought, gosh, if my mom would have known about chiropractic, I would have had a different, pathway and would have been able to help with sinus problems and headaches and the frequent flu and strep throat and colds and stuff that I would get, because that probably would have been labeled ADHD back in the day, but they didn't really do that back then.
You were just crazy.
Yeah, just crazy. I'll never forget, I was in kindergarten, and I still remember the report card, and I got all S's except for one, and it was raise his hand to speak. Apparently, I didn't like to raise my hand to speak. I just like to blurt it out,
Yeah.
right? So that would, anyway. Jeannie Ohm,
Yeah.
in pediatrics. So, and in chiropractic school, I took the pediatrics route in clinics, And so I always knew I was going to work with kids. And that's also when the autism rates were really starting to escalate. And it was during this time, too, that chiropractors were seeing that how chiropractic help with the nervous system and how it helps calm the nervous system and it helps these children with autism. And they were wise enough to know what was behind the autism rates, which there's more and more people now waking up to that, what's actually behind it, and what's causing it. Because it's not just a one magic bullet thing that's causing autism. It's kind of what we call a perfect storm.
Yeah.
It's just like all of these events that happen that keep adding up to the neurological load, the amount of stress the nervous system can handle until it blows the fuse. Yeah, you get that diagnosis, and so that was happening during Palmer, the increase in autism, and like I said, Palmer, the school there and the professors there gave us some clues as to what was going on, and some of it obviously with if chiropractic can help those with autism, there's a subluxation component to it that's at a causative factor. And so in the perfect storm, it's essentially, the stressors that stress the nervous system. And that can start from clear back in conception and during the birth or during the pregnancy, where the more stress the mom is under, the neurological how a mom's nervous system is regulating is going to have an impact, an imprint into a baby's developing nervous system. So there's all of that pregnancy stress that can go on. And then during the birth process, this is something we learned in chiropractic school too, is that, you don't put your hands on a baby's head as they're coming through the birth canal. The baby's head just knows how to come out, turn on its own to allow the shoulders to come through, and then the baby's just born. But the more stress the mama's under, the more that baby's going to get stuck in a birth canal, and it's going to be harder and harder to come through. And there's a handful of other things that happen in our medical world that cause more of a restriction in that birth process. So as a baby's then coming through, there's more stress on their head as an OB's pulling and twisting and yanking this baby through a birth canal, which puts a tremendous amount of stress on the brainstem and the vagus nerve. And so when that gets dysregulated, it lights the fuse. And now all of a sudden, then you start injecting it with these toxic little chemicals, these jabs that we give our kids up to 72 by the time they're 5. And you couple that on top of a nervous system that's already dysregulated and stressed. And boom, there you have it. You've got a big problem. Everything from autism to ADHD and sensory problems, all because of a handful of these neurological atomic bombs. Wow, that was a lot.
Yeah, no, it was, certainly. And I want to ask you, because you started your profession over 20 years ago, when this was not seen at all, right? I feel like
it was seen, but it was ramping up. And it started ramping up in the early 90s, essentially after the 1986 National Vaccine Injury Compensation Act. A law was signed by the president at that time that essentially gave pharmaceutical companies a blanket like coverage, like you couldn't sue a pharmaceutical company for damage done by a vaccine. And the reason that they went to the government to get this law passed to protect them was because they were getting sued up the wazooski, and they were going to lose their business, these pharmaceutical companies, if they continued to get sued for these vaccine injuries. So they went to Congress and said, we need protection. Otherwise, we're not going to do your vaccine things anymore. And they said, all right, here's your thing. And then now you can't sue pharmaceutical companies. And then at that point, that's when vaccines went from a handful, which caused enough damage on their own, which was covered up through all sorts of nefarious little ways. So they went from having a few dangerous vaccines to a ton of dangerous vaccines, and still covering up the vaccine injury with that. Because if you asked a pediatrician, what's a vaccine injury look like? And if they've ever documented a vaccine injury, they wouldn't know because they're not taught that in medical school.
Well, I feel like people are waking up to that now with the
are.
vaccines, especially after the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
But when you were, like I was about to say, when you were coming out and you were starting your own profession, people weren't waking up to this just yet,
No,
right?
except for chiropractors. So
Yeah.
that was the whole thing. Is that the professors at Palmer would tell us these vaccines are nasty, but look it up on your own. So we'd have to do our own little research. And then when you actually do history on chiropractic and the history of vaccination, the smallpox vaccine started in the late 1800s, and there were still people in the 1800s. You can actually Google. Of course, the word is anti-vaxxer, which is a term created probably by the CIA, but I don't want to get into that. They're the same people that came up with conspiracy theorist. It's a label developed by the CIA to make fun
Don't
of
get too crazy now.
Yeah, I know. But it was to make fun of people who didn't believe in the Kennedy assassination. So it's the same people that made up conspiracy theorists, made up this term anti-vaxxer, so that we're labeled, but the same people that challenged the vaccine propaganda were back in the 1800s. And you can see pictures of people just saying, keep your hands off our children. We don't need, this. And so that started back in the 1800s. And the developers of chiropractic, D.D. Palmer and B.J. Palmer, were telling people about the dangers of vaccine back then. So it's not a new thing. That's the crazy thing about this, is it's not new. It's been going on for over 100 years, but it's finally come to a precipice now where there's enough public and there's been enough recognition, even though they've done their best, the pharmaceutical companies, to squash the information, to ridicule people who speak out against it, to marginalize them, to minimize them, to call them crazy, wackadoodles, conspiracy theorists, all the things that they can do. But we're still waking up, and we're still finding out, and we're still letting the people know that you can't poison yourself healthier, and you can't inject tremendous amounts of immunological toxins, neurological toxins into a brand new fresh baby and expect it to do anything good.
Well, what was it like when you first started your profession and you're telling these moms that these vaccines are bad for their babies, right?
Yeah.
Well, I would assume that in the early 2000s, people didn't really have a clue about it.
They didn't, and they either got on board, but I wasn't afraid to speak either, because I've never been afraid to speak my truth. That's, I suppose, one of my biggest gifts and downfalls, because if there's something that's going on and people aren't able to see it because of lies and propaganda and this, that, and the other, I'm gonna not be quiet about it, because I think that I essentially think it's almost like being bullied, and I don't like bullies, and I don't like people being bullied into making decisions based on misinformation, lies, deceit, and propaganda.
So I want to take things back to you starting your own profession.
Yeah.
And obviously, as some of the people that are clients know, you've moved buildings.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because some people, they get a little hesitant when it comes to changing up a whole environment.
Gosh,
It's been probably nearly 10 years. 8 years, yeah.
now. It's crazy. It's I was at the other place for 15 years, and now I've been at this place for 7.5, almost 8 years now. Yeah. And that change was big, because, as you know, once you kind of get going on your groove, and getting outside and changing can be a little scary. And I was really excited at first. Once I decided to make the change, I was going to bring in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, a couple other different therapies, infrared sauna, cold laser therapy, all these different, bells and whistles, these cool little therapies that help with the brain and nervous system. And I'll never forget it. So I'm all excited. I'm going to sign the lease for this new adventure, right? This new building, this new space, and we're going to make it amazing, right? And then that was the end of 2016, like December 2016. And all the momentum, all the woohoo. And then January 2017 was I got a big kick in the stomach. One was one of my mentors that helped me when I first moved out to Chicagoland, kind of helped me get my bearings, and we did all sorts of training and coaching with this gentleman, Dr. Chuck Majors, who had actually survived stage 4 terminal cancer 6.5 years previous, 7 years previous, and was like Lazarus coming back from the dead. And it completely, like no cancer in him 5 years after, ended up dying a year and a half after that from the cancer again. He came back in fast and furious, and he passed away in mid-January. And that just was like a big, like, whoa, a wake-up call. And then I got this letter. No, the next thing was I found out my wife Jamie was pregnant with our first kid. After being married 13, 14 years, all of a sudden now I'm 43 and she's kissing 40 and we're having our first kid. And it was like, whoa, all right, here we go. So, Chuck dies. We get this new baby coming our way. And then the week after that, I got this letter from Medicare saying that we're going to audit your records for all of these patients. And I've heard of other chiropractors and friends of mine that have been audited, and some of them it's like a nightmare for them. And some of them it's never fun, but some of them it's not fun, but everything is okay. And some of them it's not fun and they got to get back a lot of money because they didn't do something properly. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just signed this lease. I got Medicare crawling up my rear end, and I don't know if I'm going to have to, give them back any, $100,000 or whatever, because another one of my friends had to do that. I had a friend that died, and then I got this baby on the way, and I was like, my gosh, can things get any more crazy? And then everything ended up turning out just fine, but you never know while you're going through it. And I remember that January, just like sleepless nights. But we made it through, and I guess, what that teaches me is perseverance, never give up, and once we, and then we finally opened the office in August of 2017, and then been going strong ever since. But that January 2017, oh my gosh, I didn't know how the heck I was going to get through, but. And then, like I said, what was your initial question though?
I said,
moving.
what was it like moving?
Yeah, it was
a lot more space, right?
Lot more
You added a
space.
lot more equipment.
Yeah. And so I thought, gosh, all of this stuff is going to really boom the practice. And, I stayed pretty steady through the whole thing. And then I had this thing, I think we were going to talk about with Hayden.
Yeah.
And I thought, this laser, the hyperbarics, going to help with, with more kids with autism and sensory issues and people throughout the board, because hyperbaric's really good with cancer and stroke and post-concussion and all sorts of different issues that it's good for. And then Hayden happened last year, and that just kind of was another sock in the gut. And I was like, what's going on here? And that just really opened my eyes to some things that I was kind of glossing over that I needed to dial in. And thank goodness for my son having the seizures, because I saw what I was missing, not only in my own kid, but how I could then help others even deeper. Because if I was missing it with I shouldn't say if I was missing it with my own kid. It's easier to miss things with your own kid.
Sure, most definitely, yeah.
Because you're like, oh, it's my own kid. He's going to be fine or whatever. And to have a kid with seizures is a wake-up call. Yeah, it's a wake-up call because, we thought we were doing everything right. We had a home birth, no vaccines. I'd seen, I'd checked and adjusted him right away after birth. And with some sort of regularity afterwards, I just didn't realize that he needed more. And the reason I didn't realize that is because I never scanned my own son. I would scan other kids and scan other people, but I never scanned my own kid. And I thought, well, that's not going to happen again.
Well, why didn't you scan him?
Because he'd had a home birth. He wasn't vaccinated. I just thought everything was fine. I was assuming everything was fine. And then once things weren't fine, I started understanding that I needed to pay better attention to the scans that I was already doing, and I needed to have deeper understandings of the scans, and that was the biggest thing. Deeper understandings of the scans and doing them more frequently.
So how has that experience with Hayden opened your eyes to more things and helping other people in the practice in general?
I just realized that there's so much. Oh gosh, I thought that I understood at a pretty good level what was going on with these kids, but I'd never seen a lot of kids with seizures. It was like something kind of like it was out in left field, right? It just didn't. The thing that was my passion was autism, because that had affected my own family with having a brother with autism and ADHD. And those are the things that I gravitated more towards. And seizures were just kind of out there in the distance. I was like, oh, that just happened to other people. And I didn't see it as much. And then my good friend, Dr. Tony Ebel, I remember listening to him one time. He's like, you're going to see a lot more seizures. Just wait. It's because he had his own son with seizures. And so then when I had Hayden, and he had 3 seizures in a matter of 4 weeks, and had a couple prior to that the year before, I was like, all right, I'm obviously missing something. So I give Dr. Ebel, a call, and I was like, Tony, I'm sitting in a hospital here with a kid with seizures. I need help because I'm missing something, right? And he said, I got you, bro. Never forget it. I got you. No problem. Just bring him on in and we'll get it figured out. And that's exactly what happened. And I started figuring out the deeper levels of understanding that I needed to know in regards to the nervous system and the scans, these things that I needed to know in order to help more people. And that I couldn't just kind of do surface level things anymore. I had to go deep. So I took a deep dive and understood more about neurology and how that neurology, what that abnormal neurology looks like on a scan, and how to better and deeper interpret these scans that we do at the office that are essentially scans that scan the nervous system.
So I know I'm flipping up the topics, but I want to talk about Jody, right?
Yes.
Jody has been with you it seems
Over
since
10
the
years
beginning.
now.
I remember when I was coming in as a kid, Jody was there. I've been in there since I was like 3-4 years old.
Yeah.
Jody was still there, and she's still
No. It might seem like that. That's one of those. What do they
wasn't
call
there.
that?
The little Mandela
The
effect.
Mandela effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jody. I'm gonna have to tell Jody that she's like nothing. That she's part of the Mandela effect. You were there. What did you come? Like it was 04, 03 or 04.
I came in. I was born 03. I came in probably 06. Or
I think you were
maybe
18
05.
months. You were 18 months.
You
You weren't even 2.
right after the collapsed lung. Then
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
When were you born? 03?
03. So
So it was
Claire, so then
05.
my sister came in probably when she was 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then Josh and I came in.
Yeah. And then your sister had I'll never forget. She had Miss Chris, but you and Jack had
Me and
my
Josh.
wife. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, because you're Jack, right?
Yeah. Oh my god.
Anyway, Jack and Josh, your twin brother, had Mrs. Foss as a first grade teacher. So we're gonna flip the script here, Jack.
Yeah.
Tell me, what was Mrs. Foss like having in first grade?
Well, I guess I didn't really, when you're 7 years old.
Yeah,
You don't
you
think
do.
much of it, right? You don't think much of having a teacher. I actually saw her maybe a month ago in the office, and I was like, "Do you remember when I pooped on?" Now I'm getting a little crazy here, but do you remember when I pooped on? You know how in the classrooms they have the rainbow carpet,
Yes.
and each kid will sit on a block.
Uh-huh.
I was definitely a danger in that class, but no, she was a good teacher, right? I remember writing books, like writing cartoon books, and going into the library and doing typing stuff, and
She loved you guys. Absolutely loved you guys.
I just remember keeping in contact with her, right? Because we were getting adjusted, right? So I'd see her in the office. I'd be like, "Oh, Mrs. Foss." And then I hadn't seen her for a couple years. And I saw her again, and she'd be like, "Oh my gosh, you guys are so big." And it's just like, it was crazy, right?
Yeah,
Because
it's fun.
I feel it's crazy with your teachers, how they still recognize you or they still remember you.
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't expecting her to still remember me, but I mean, she remembers the students that were idiots and were pooping on the carpets and oh my gosh.
I'll have to ask her about that.
But no,
That's
I mean, she was
funny.
a good teacher. I know she's been retired a couple years now.
Yeah, since 2019. Yeah.
So a lot has changed since probably 2010 to 2019.
Yeah.
But she was a great teacher.
Yeah,
This
she's
was
amazing.
before. Now we had the whiteboard, right? So she was teaching off the whiteboard. This is before they had the projectors.
Yeah.
And giving kids packets. She was hands-on teaching.
Yeah.
Um,
She loved teaching first grade. She loved teaching kids how to read. She still loves teaching, kids, and she helps, our kids with their reading. So, they're so advanced. Once they get to school, they're already they're ready to go.
Well, back to Jody. Right? Back to
Jody,
Jody
all
real
right.
quick. How did that relationship start?
That was the very end of 2014. So yeah, and then I think it
Okay,
was
so that
December
I still remember
2014.
that. Okay, so it hasn't been that long.
It hasn't been that long,
Yeah,
right?
that's a Mandela effect for sure.
Yeah, so she's been there for not 10 or 11, going on year 11, or maybe somewhere. I can't do the math right now, but she's absolutely amazing, just amazing what she does.
I
And
thought you were with her for longer, so that's why I posed the question.
it seems like 100 years, really. No, but she's great. I don't know what I'd do without her. She puts up with all of my stuff. I put up with all of her stuff. How we've lasted this long. It's so funny when you talk about relationships and work relationships. We've got, I think, from my perspective, we've got a deep respect for each other, and that's where it is. So if there's ever a time where it's like, she's can't believe she did that, or if I did something, it's like, what the heck was he doing? In her head, because she probably gets that a lot in her own head.
Certainly.
The respect though for each other, and knowing that we're each doing the best that we can, and that we've got a big understanding of what the goal is for the office, and how we want to help and how we can help so many people. We keep that as like our focus. And because she's been there for 10 years, she gets it. She gets the nuts and the bolts and the importance of every little detail of what goes on in the office. And so yeah, it's she's incredible. I love it. And she's got a great way of communicating with patients, and nobody takes any, she doesn't, how do I want to say this in the most diplomatic way? Nobody gives her any guff. That's for sure, because she knows how to take it and give it right back with a smile and a laugh. And she's just amazing. And she knows how to keep the ship tight.
Yeah, I mean, I can say that because I worked back there with her. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna go on a little bit of a different kind of question. Obviously, for so long you've been so bold in saying that you can help kids with autism, right? And it's separate from the conventional way of medicine.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you, what's kept you so grounded in that? That you've never changed. You've always had the same perspective with this. And I know you'll probably end up saying chiropractic, but there must be something deeper to it.
It's truth. It's just truth. When you see what's behind it, what's causing it, and those same things that are causing autism, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, anxiety, depression, that whole neurodevelopmental issue, when you see what's behind it and what's causing this neurological dysregulation, and then you see that those same categories, these emotional stressors, and we'll call them vibrational stressors, whether that's guilt, fear, anxiety, doom, these negative emotions, or whether those negative frequencies, we'll call them, are coming from 5G, Bluetooth. These are frequencies that have impact on your cells and on your nervous system. So whether they're, like I said, whether it's vibrational toxicities, chemical toxicities coming from our nutrition and our food and poisons and pharmaceuticals, food and pharmaceuticals, those basically are big ones there. So we have vibrational / emotional traumas and toxins. We have chemical toxins, and then we have physical traumas. These same three categories not only cause the autism and the neurodevelopmental issues, but they also are behind asthma and cancer and diabetes and heart disease and hormone imbalances. These are the three categories that dysregulate the body. And so when you understand like the simple truth of what is behind a lot of the sicknesses and problems that people suffer from, then that's what keeps you grounded and keeps you going from to keep telling the story. Anybody that's got truth to tell, whether it's in Christ, and in God, or whether it's through this temple that we've been, that we're created with, that's what gives us the power to keep going and keeps us grounded. It's God, it's Christ, and it's like these universal truths that work with God as well.
I'm getting you. Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that when you first started getting into chiropractic, you thought it was just like back adjustments, and that's kind of still a notion today about chiropractic, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure people come in and they're very skeptic about chiropractic, and I want to ask you, how do you deal with that, and what kind of conversations, or how do you steer a conversation like that when somebody's just very skeptic?
I love the skeptical person, though. That's like one of my favorite, because they'll end up being the best patients you'll ever have, because they'll go from one skeptical. So, and if you do things right, you can turn them into raging fans of chiropractic and just truth. I mean, because chiropractic isn't just about popping backs or cracking backs. It's literally about restoring man the physical to man the spiritual. It's really blending those two together so that humans can reach their full potential. And then once people can start to grasp that it's bigger than just popping backs, and then it literally has something to do with their life, because chiropractic and life are like intermixed. I mean, you don't have you hear about this all the time, where people, if they lose their health, they have if you have your health, everybody's got like 100 wishes. If you have your health, I wish I had that and do that and do that. But if you lose your health, you have one wish.
Means that you wish you had your health.
You wish you had your health, because you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And so your health and life are intertwined, and also chiropractic and life are intertwined, because it's the adjustment that it's life that flows through the nervous system. There's a phrase that you live your life through your nervous system. And if you cut a nerve to your tooth dies. So chiropractic is literally about restoring that life force, that spirit that animates the human body. So then going back to the question of, how do you take somebody that thinks that it's back and neck pain and kind of like shift them around? Because if they're skeptical, it's like, oh gosh, how are you going to do that? Well, first it's enjoying the steps that it takes. So it's really like taking that on as like a challenge and like stepping up to it.
Yeah, like level of trust almost.
Yeah, and then you just got to you keep the communication simple. It's bridging the gap from where they are, taking them from where they are, and then understanding maybe some other issues that they might have that they had no idea that was associated with their back or their neck. So it's just doing just a simple history about, I see that you have headaches, or I see that you have sinus issues, or you have high blood pressure, or you have anxiety, and then you just link the back issue, because your back is like essentially, it's like a fuse box. This is the fuse box,
The spine,
and the spine, that it's the relay center between the brain and the body. And if there's a glitch, a blown fuse in the relay center, whatever's connected to that fuse is going to break down. So you connect their areas in their spine, their discomfort here, with sinus issues or heart issues or gut issues or what have you, and that's essentially the link. And then you just have to be able to deliver the goods. That's the other part. That's the art and the adjusting. And thank goodness for Hayden again for that, because his issue helped me learn more techniques and better techniques to be able to address some of these issues with not just kiddos, but with humans all over, age range.
I get it, Doc. I'm moving all over the place, but I want to ask you, this is a great question right here. And it's that, obviously, we've talked about you being in office for a while. If you could right now give yourself a piece of advice or give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be? I know you've stayed true to many different principles throughout your tenure.
Probably my last year that I learned with Hayden, and learning more techniques to adjust a little one with the frequency that he needed to be adjusted in order to make the change in his nervous system. Because when you just have osseous adjustments, like traditional style chiropractic adjustments, and you're working with a newborn or a child or a toddler, and you need to adjust them more frequently, you got to be able to adjust these kids with the frequency and with the technique that's not so aggressive, but still making the change in their nervous system. That's what I would tell myself 20 years ago, is learn more low force tonal techniques and understand your scanning better, so that you can give the kids what they need to make the best change.
Then what would you say is different compared from then to now? You would just say that you were just giving kids adjustments and assuming that they would be good, or no? I don't want to say that and make it
Yeah,
sound bad, right?
right. It's just deeper.
Yeah.
It's just deeper. It's like somebody that's playing D1 college baseball and somebody that's playing major leagues for the Cubs.
Yeah.
Talent-wise, there's not a huge difference.
100% right. Yep.
It's not a big difference, but between those two, there's a lot of difference, because then you've got the minor leagues all through here. There's, and then all of a sudden now you're in the big leagues and you're on the main stage. The biggest difference isn't actually what you're doing talent-wise. A lot of it is right up here, and it's how to be able to handle a stressful situation and how to be able to handle a hard case. And just so that's the biggest thing that I learned over the last year, was just dialing in my my skills.
What would you say would be the most memorable patient transformation you've had?
Oh gosh, that's a good question.
Point out a few. I know we have some in the office still, or some people that are.
Mac
they
was
still get
great.
adjusted.
I mean,
Mac.
that's a great story. That's a recent one, so I guess that one's easier to remember.
Yeah.
Little kid Mac that came in. He was maybe 6 months old, because he's a year now. 6 months old. He had a stroke when he was born. His mom, I'm sure Taryn will let me talk about this, but she was wondering about what was behind it, and when I started talking to her about vaccines and the COVID shot, because she had to have one because she was a nurse. I don't know if that was the cause, but we can't also throw that off the table.
Stressful pregnancy again.
Stressful pregnancy, and then having something that causes clots with the spike protein. Can't throw that off the table. I don't know if that's, again, the cause or not, but you can't ignore it.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
And I was the first doctor to actually substantiate that feeling that she had, because she was wondering if that could have been part of it. And again, I said, well, could be. And we can't, like I said, we can't say that it's not. So she felt very heard, because she was concerned about that. And so Mac had a stroke at birth, and his hand was pretty well clenched and tight. And they were telling her that, that he was going to have this problem or that problem, and it could, and that would affect his development, and he might have this problem for the rest of his life. And it was like, well, you know what? Let's just get in there and make some changes, because the nerve system is so plastic and changeable at that age that, we started working with Mac, and then his hand starts opening up, but now he's walking perfectly fine, and his growth and his neurodevelopment is right on track, and everything is like working perfect. And she is absolutely thrilled. And it's cool to see a baby that had a stroke when it was born and had some of these issues right away at 6 months, to now just being perfectly on track and rocking and rolling in life. That's amazing.
Well, at the end of the day, she trusted you
Yeah.
with Mac, right? How important would you say is trust in the relationship between you and a patient?
That's like the number one thing. That's like the first thing that has to be set. In order for anything else to happen, in order for the transformations to happen in people's health, they have to be able to trust you. And a lot of parents have.
They hold guard.
I think how I do things in the office with just giving people truth, I think that is it resonates with them. Even though some of the things that I might talk about might ruffle some feathers, I try to do it in the most diplomatic way that doesn't point fingers or tell people that they're wrong, but we need to be addressing these issues, because they quite potentially could be some of the problem as to what's going on. Because if you're doing something for your kids that actually could be a problem, it's kind of sticky. It could be like, oh my gosh, because you never want to tell somebody that they're doing something wrong. You have to build that trust first. So trust is critically important, and because you can't lead somebody to to where they want to go unless they trust you.
Now that we're closing in a bit, I want to ask you some final questions. What's next for Vital Wellness Center? What do you see when you look out into the next 5 years? What do you see?
So it's funny. I'm going to bring that back around to when I shifted my office to having hyperbaric and all these different treatments and therapies. Now, I'm not going to poo-poo them, but I started realizing the biggest thing that I needed to do was that humans and our patients needed more than any of the other therapies is they needed better chiropractic care, and they needed more chiropractic care because chiropractic is about tuning the nervous system. Again, not so much popping backs to make people's back and necks feel better, even though it works for that too.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, gosh, I need more docs in here. I don't need, because my first thought was opening up the other places, having more therapies, less docs or people, because more people to manage can be tougher. And then I started realizing that, chiropractic is the lead horse. It is the horse, the mule, the ox, the power behind everything else. And there's really nothing more powerful than the human spirit that's flowing through your nervous system. Not a bigger, more powerful healing force in the universe than what flows through you. And we need more docs that are able to tap into that and express that and get that expressed out into our patients. These other things like a cold laser and hyperbaric, they're all good tools and definitely good, but they're kind of like, they're a little further down the line. They're kind of like the whipped cream on the ice cream.
I'm going to get ice cream for the ice cream,
Yes, chiropractic's the ice cream. The other things, hyperbaric and laser, those are like, the whipped cream and the cherry. They're all great and everything. But so over the next 5 years then, I see myself having more docs to deliver life-saving chiropractic and focusing less on some of these other things. As good as they are, I'll still have them, but it's going to be much more neurospinal, neurologically focused chiropractic care.
Now, if parents knew blank, my fault. If more parents knew blank, their whole parenting journey would change, right? If they knew what would change their
that
whole
one's
journey?
easy. I mean, do I do the easiest one? If they knew chiropractic and really what it was, because people say chiropractic and their mind and their brain, knee-jerk reflex, automatically thinks back, neck pain, cracking backs, versus neurologically tuning to enhance your life for your entire life. So if they really understood chiropractic at its truest nature, we would utilize chiropractic during preconception to make sure that mom and dad's nervous system are tuned properly so that they can have the healthiest baby, and that healthy baby starts preconception. And then
almost.
during conception, no, not during conception. That's my joke. Probably not that funny. I've been lulling people to sleep, so they probably didn't pick up on that one. No, not during conception, although it can help with that too. Sure, hormone balance and all that. But during pregnancy, because healthy nervous system for mom is going to create a healthier baby. And then as soon as that baby's born, getting the nervous system checked. And then from womb to tomb, baby, womb to tomb, keep your nervous system in check, in line, tuned up through your life, and you're going to experience a much healthier life. And I'm not going to say it's going to be perfect because there's always stuff that comes up, but there's going to be a lot less issues. So in my eyes, our healthcare system, the pharmaceutical Western medical healthcare system, is 90% overutilized. And if we had more and more people that use chiropractic from womb to tomb, we would have a decrease in our healthcare system by 90%. That 10% is the emergency cares that we need for, if somebody's having a heart attack, a stroke, or, there's something major going, because heaven forbid there's, say even cancer or something that's going on where the body needs some extra help because of the level that a person's at. So sometimes we need to manage a disease process because the body needs some extra help. But again, between disease management for those crisis situations and crisis care situations, that's only 10% of healthcare. 90% is medicating for things that could be healed through chiropractic, where you start the nervous system. Then we go to nutrition, detoxification, all those things that people are really talking about now, nutrition, supplementation, detox, diet, all of those things are all amazing. But your body's not going to assimilate nutrients and be able to detox properly if the nervous system's stressed. So layer one, it's all about sequencing things properly in order to get the best results. And to get the best results through your life, you want to start with the nervous system. That's always the first place to start. Tune the nervous system, and then start adding in your nutrition and detox and all of those things as well.
That's all I got.
All right. Awesome.